What's going on, everybody? So I got Darth on the channel today, and he and I got to level 70 and 71 as Rogue and Druid, and we're here to talk about the Druid leveling build that's going to help you out. This is stuff that I've gotten used to in the 20 and 25 betas myself, but you've had a lot of experience in the betas as well. So what do we got going on here? What are we working with?
So we can't talk about the stuff that we had during the pre-early access, obviously, but what we can get into is just the build, going through the build planner that I have since sent over to you. So you're gonna have kind of a visual representation as I walk you through this. Now, the point of this build, the build that I think is going to be the best build, speculation, okay, is that I think the best build is going to be Pulverize. I really think Pulverize looks quite good. I think there's a lot of synergies within the Pulverize build for Druid that makes them work together, and most importantly, if you're leveling, which I think we decided this is going to be more of an early game 1 to 50 type of leveling Druid guide. The good thing about this is that a big variety of legendaries actually work within this build, and the reason for this is because we're going to be using Pulverize and synergizing it with Earth. So kind of give you just a general overview. Basically, the concept is we make Pulverize as strong as we can. We also make it an Earth skill through the aspect of Urzine Horde, which is going to be on the amulet, for instance, on this one. And then because of that, we get the modifiers as we go through the skill tree and explain the rest of the build to also influence Earth skills.
Yeah, so I think one of the strongest things about this build is the overpower mechanics, right? I mean, we get a free overpower every 12 seconds for our Pulverize. Would you say that's kind of like the main component of your massive damage dealing portion?
In the beginning, that would be accurate. So when you are leveling, and this would probably be relevant for the beginning of it, yes. Later on, the 12-second thing isn't as important. Yes, you are going to maintain your health, so you will be getting that every 12-second overpower. But the reason it's not quite as important is there's multiple ways to get overpower. You get it through the skill tree of the 20 seconds. You get it through 12 seconds of being healthy from the enhanced Pulverize. But then later on, when Spirit Boons, the Obsidian, which you can see here on the build at the bottom, there is on the snake, the first one of the snake row is actually every 10th kill will cause your next Earth skill to overpower. So because Pulverize is an Earth skill, you're going to basically one-shotting mobs. When you kill a pack of mobs, the next pack of mobs, you're probably going to have the overpower on because it's about 10 minions. So for that reason, you're going to have overpower happening a lot. But the enhanced guarantee Pulverize at the very beginning helps you a lot because the build takes a bit to ramp up. It's definitely better in the later levels than it is in the early. You're just going to benefit from being fairly tanky in the beginning because of the bear, which makes things a little bit easier. But the beginning will be slow, so having that Pulverize, yeah, you're right, it helps in the beginning.
Yeah, so that is a really big concern for a lot of people, is that early process. I mean, how many tier lists out there when we're talking about the early leveling has Druid like a noticeable couple of tiers down? So
yeah, all of them.
All of them, right? What I think is really cool about the Druid, though, is despite the fact that I do think that it's still worse, based on my beta experience, they are still tanky at the beginning of the game. Like, even at the beginning of the game, they were out tanking my rogue or even like the sorcerer for me in some scenarios. And with, as you say, that provocation trait, does that buff up Hurricane enough to where you're actually doing damage? Because we all heard the 17 damage meme and we're using Hurricane. So do you use that kind of combo that I've heard some other people talk about?
Well, okay, so don't be mistaken, Hurricane is not exactly the biggest damage in the game. That's not really why we're using it in this build, okay? All of our damage, and trust me when I say all of our damage is coming from Pulverize. So when you see the other things in there, they're only there to further modify. The only move we have is Pulverize, because you will slap with your hand and do no damage, and then you'll Pulverize and everyone gets deleted. So that's what's going to happen, okay? Now, in terms of how it actually works and why I'll answer the Hurricane question specifically first, and then I'll start walking through the build, is Hurricane is going to apply a slow because of the variant of it we take in the skill tree you can see, and then we're also going to be applying a vulnerability. Until we get later on the Paragon boards and stuff, we're not going to really have a way of applying vulnerability, so this gives us a way of having increased damage, and the slow is also going to increase our damage as well, because in the skill tree, when you kind of go to the third tier or fourth tier there under the Wrath skills, on the right hand side, you're going to notice Crushing Earth, Safeguard, and Stone Guard, and those are modifiers based upon having people be crowd controlled. So slow counts as crowd control in this game. So because this is a Pulverize as an Earth skill, once again, having them be slowed through Hurricane and other ways, there's many ways we slow them in this build, will actually increase our overall damage. So it gives us vulnerability, which is 20%, and then gives us 15% from crushing Earth. So for that reason, it's like a 35% damage buff. But that's not the only way we actually benefit. If you go back to the gear and you look at the actual gloves that we're going to be using, aspect of Rampaging Werebeast, the way this works is when you use your ultimate, the Grizzly Rage, you get a bunch of bonuses that come with Grizzly Rage. This gives you an additional bonus that every time you get a critical strike, your crit damage goes up by 10% for the rest of the ultimate. And we're actually going to be able to extend the ultimate by getting kills, because that's how the move works. We're also going to be able to extend the ultimate by having the 25% extend duration of ultimates Calamity and the Spirit Boons under that wolf tier, that third tier there. So your ultimate's actually going to go on for a while, which makes Hurricane doubly important, because we can cast Hurricane, then our skill bar actually changes to the Grizzly Rage one, where it's all Grizzly moves now, or Earth moves also because of the helmet we're going to use. And then the Hurricane's still on us. So as we run through the pack of mobs and we're fighting, that AoE is actually ramping our critical strike damage. So it's effectively a damage over time, a dot that we're casting in a circle around us. Even if it only hit 1 damage, less than 17, we would still be using it, because the entire purpose has nothing to do with its damage, but only to make everything else we do hit harder.
I think that's a pretty good strategy. I mean, looking just through the build, we've got pretty much bear skills to kind of generate that kind of werebear synergy. And then also that Grizzly Rage. This is, based on what I saw from the 25 beta, this really starts to kind of show a little bit of what the Druid is capable of, because this did hit very, very hard when we were able to go ahead and get that rolling. And as you were saying, with all the synergies, with the kind of CC and the overpower damage, and then of course just the Pulverize in general, and the aspect that you're running on it, you really have a lot of synergy with the build that I don't really see in a lot of other classes. And I think that's what's key to keeping the Druid back in these early levels, is like a lot of these ones are in dungeons that we could not complete before, right? So we have like the Rampaging Werebeast, where we're extending that duration, increasing our critical strike damage. That's not available for us right now. Or the Earth Sign Horror, that's also not available to us. But with the combination of these, I can really see the kind of Pulverize popping off. There's one part of the build that I think a lot of people have a question about, because basically every build, when you're talking about them, rely on some sort of key passive. That's going to be that passive at the very end of the skill tree. Oftentimes you look at those and that's kind of where your builds come from, that and the core skills. So is this key passive really something that's going to change the build, you think, or is it just there as a little bit of extra value?
The key passive seems to be quite important to me, but there's actually a variant of the key passive that is quite important as well, which if you go down and you look, we're going to start with Urzine Strength for the Grizzly Rage bonus damage, but the thing is, to the right of it, there's one called Earthen Might, and when you read this, you probably see where this is going, that you have a 5% chance to restore all your spirit, and you also guarantee your next attacks or critical strikes for the next 5 seconds. And when you critical strike, it's a 10% chance to do this again. And it's 10% if they're stunned, immobilized, or knocked back, which we do stun with overpower. Okay, so it's pretty funny, because the way it actually works is you go, hurrah, and you smash with the bear, and then you're like, oh, I have all spirit energy, and you go, haba, 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 and you just start like machine gunning out this shockwave, effectively, which is hilarious and also quite good. So if you have enough damage where you can basically just destroy everything, then you swap to Earthen Might, because it's going to generate you more. It's going to generate you more spirit, basically, and that's how you keep up your resource gain. But if you're struggling with just having enough damage, then you're playing a lot more of like this. I'm waiting 20 and 12 seconds to get my Pulverize. I'm kiting a lot of damage. And I'm coming back and hitting, and then I'm kind of kiting again. You're playing more that style, but it switches very quickly into kapow, 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 and you're just machine gunning down shockwaves once you have the spirit generation and enough damage at the same time. So that's kind of the cool thing about it. You can use both, and for different reasons. The other part that's busted is you can swap this stuff around in the middle of combat. I don't know why they thought this was a good idea. They fixed the skill. They fixed the skill part where now if you drag a skill onto the previous one, it has the same cooldown of the previous skill you used. So you can't abuse just swapping skills around. But what you can actually do, funny enough, is you can swap spirit boons at any time on the Druid. So what you can do is I can have extend duration of ultimate, cast my ultimate, remove that one, and then swap it over to dealing damage as a chance to restore my spirit. Okay, so I can do that instantly. I can have the every 10 kills guarantees me an overpower. Then when my ultimate's up, I just click the button and switch over to every time I hit, I have a chance of reducing the cooldown of my ultimate. But if you really want to be a salty, sweaty, bloody min-maxer, you can do it. And it's, I don't know if that's cool because it's skill based, which it kind of is. I mean, you kind of have to be recognizing the opportunities and having the mechanics to do in the middle of the fight, or it's just really dumb because it's objectively probably the better way of doing it. I don't know, but it is something that's part of the game. I can tell you that much.
Last question I have, and this is something because we have not really experienced it in the betas, but it's something that a lot of people have kind of been theory crafting with, similar to the techniques for the barb, and that is the spirit boons. Do you think these are gonna like absolutely change the build for you, or is it something that you're not sure about?
I don't know, Veld. I never got a chance to use them, so I'll answer that question on the 30th. The only thing I'm going to say about the boons is that just read them for yourselves, okay? And then realize the legendary, even looking at what we have available here, we can read these. If you just look at them, it's like 5% crit chance, 30% critical damage. It's raw stats. Then if you just go and look at things like Paragon boards, the aspects, you start to realize there's a lot more raw stats from literally like one rare node. All right? So that's pretty much the only way I can answer that.
Yeah, that's what I would say as well, is that when you see crit strike chance and you see crit strike damage, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. That's all you need to know, really. So thank you, Darth, for coming on for the 1 to 50 Druid build. We're going to have more content on my channel and on his channel May 30th. Guys, early access to all the Diablo content you want. Be sure to sub to both our channels. And anything else you want to say?
Subscribe to my channel, but not Veld's. That's all I gotta say, boys.
Okay. If this Druid build takes you to 50 without dying, I'll allow that. All
right. Sub. Watch our live streams. Like, comment, subscribe for more Minecraft Let's Plays. That's all I got. Close the video. Save me.